Hi everybody, welcome. My name is Alyssa McConkey and I am a program manager with EarthForce. So thanks for being here today to learn a little bit more about EarthForce. Our organization is a nonprofit that is focused on getting young people to environmental civic action in their communities. So I'm excited to share a little bit more with you today. To start us off, I thought it would be good to hear from our CEO, Vince Meldrum, and watch this short video about the history and some of the background of EarthForce. Enjoy!
An environmental movement without a youth movement is no movement at all. The reason that is true is that these environmental issues are multi-generational. EarthForce was founded based on some actions of some young people. In about 1988-89, the Pew Charitable Trust was looking around at what young people were doing on environmental issues, and they found a group of young people who were speaking out in their communities and attempting to make change. In particular, they found a young woman named Anna Brown. Anna was working in her community to get polystyrene out of the waste stream. And so she did a cleanup and she took it back to the places it came from, mostly takeout food places, and asked them to stop using polystyrene. They said no, and so she worked with the city council to pass an ordinance that banned polystyrene in takeout food. Young people are starting to understand that they have a voice. And that's a big change, and it's an important change. They're identifying problems locally that either feed into the climate change problem or are a result of climate change, and they're pretty active in trying to solve those. So it's smaller actions that young people are starting to take, in addition to the big actions of the nationwide climate marches and such. Now you see a lot of young people are out there, and it's not just this topic. There were the young people at Parkland who came out and said that the gun violence there was not right and that we should do something about it. And so I think what you're seeing is a moment in time where young people try and make change in their community. Climate change isn't going to be solved by the time you and I are gone, or anyone else that's seeing this tape. Climate change is going to be with us for a long time. And so it's important to build those skills that young people need now to be able to solve the problems now and in the future. The best indicator of whether or not you'll be civically engaged when you're older is if you were civically engaged when you were younger. It's important to build that competency so that young people know how to solve problems and will solve problems.
Now you know a little bit more about EarthForce and our background. Our goal at EarthForce is for youth to take civic action on environmental issues they care about. So in a minute, I'm going to introduce the 6-step process that we promote as a way to get to this end goal. But I just want to say before we begin that this can be a really powerful way to take the information that we often share in environmental education and do something with it. A lot of times we give young people a lot of content about their environment, and sometimes we have them collect data and information, but we often fall short in taking action on that information. Sometimes we'll tag on a service project at the end, but rarely are they related and really follow through. And we know that's hard. It's a different way of teaching. It takes a little bit more time and a little bit more input, but it's really valuable in the end. And when you pull in youth-adult partnerships and civic skills into that, then the end product is really, really meaningful for everyone involved. So let's dig into the 6-step process, keeping in mind that it is a great way to take the information that we learn about our environment, the data we collect about it, and move to action. So here is our 6-step process. So we're going to run through these steps in more detail here in a moment, as much as we can in a short overview. But I just wanted to give you a chance to look at the 6-step process in its whole, moving from collecting that information through decision-making processes with young people and getting to action and celebration. So let's zoom in a tad. Let's look at step 1. So in step 1, students perform a community environmental inventory. So what that basically means is collecting data. So in this space, educators and students work together to collect qualitative data and quantitative data. So they might be doing some stream testing, but also talking to some local experts They might be looking at flooding in the media, as well as talking to grandma about their experience with flooding, or perhaps doing some measuring of erosion or stream banks. So really collecting all sorts of different information about their community. And when we say within a community, we can also define that scope. Sometimes that community is a school, sometimes it's even a classroom, sometimes it's as broad as a state or our country. And at the end of step 1, what we really want is a list of strengths and a list of concerns. And from this, we will move on to step 2 to choose our issue. So step 2 is all about selecting a single issue for the rest of the process. So here is where students practice democratic decision making to decide on one issue. So they've come to this step with a list of issues and strengths, and they're going to then decide on one as a group that they're interested in moving forward with. So step 3 is really all about researching the policies and community practices that underlie our issue. So examples of policies would be, for instance, that one has to be 18 to vote. And an example of a community practice would be my neighbors recycle their bottles and cans. So looking at those underlying practices, those underlying policies, is really important in helping choose strategies that are sustainable. We also want to make sure that we include stakeholders in our research. So engaging young people in reaching out to the stakeholders around the issue, who's involved, impacted, and who are the decision makers, are all good things to ask. And so getting students to reach out to these folks is not only going to help in the sustainability and the strategy, but it's also going to give young people those really important experiences like asking for change and interacting with power structures. So that's step 3 in a nutshell. In step 4, students are taking all of the research that they just gathered, their understanding of the policies and practices, their outreach to stakeholders, and they're discussing and debating potential strategies to solve the issue that they've chosen or to address the issue. So it is important that when we get to this point, even if we have multiple different strategies, that we encourage young people to have at least one strategy or a component of the strategy that literally asks for a change. So they ask someone in a power position for something to change. This is such a vital piece of civic engagement and a key part of EarthForce that we will dig into a little bit more moving forward. So in step 4, they're really choosing their strategy. In step 5, we take action. Students start by breaking the strategies down into actionable tasks and then making a plan, which could include splitting into groups or committees. Step 5 concludes when our actions have been completed. Note that if the action does not succeed as planned, that's okay, and research agrees. This learning is really about the process. Step 6 is all about reflecting and celebrating. So it's really a time to look back throughout the whole process, and again, not just looking at the action that was completed and if it was successful, but really the growth along the way. All right, there you go. 6-step overview. Hopefully throughout that, you saw that movement from information to decision making and ending in action. And hopefully throughout you noticed some key elements like youth-adult partnerships. So youth-adult partnerships are exactly what they sound like, working in partnership with young people. We want there to be reciprocal learning. We want to learn from them, they're learning from us. It's really more of a partnership than a directive. So it's a different way of teaching and learning, but it's a really powerful way to move through this process together and makes learning a lot more impactful and authentic, while also giving students those important skill building experiences that they need. So as the adults, sometimes that means helping to facilitate a situation, maybe be the guide on the side versus the mentor in the center, but helping to get students asking questions and facilitate some of the directional stuff, keep the process going without just pulling students along the whole time. We realize this takes some scaffolding, and we do have some tools and such on our website. Sometimes it just takes practice and trying for both young people and adults. So hopefully the other component that was loud and clear is civic action, key part of the Earth Force process. So at Earth Force, we define civic engagement as any individual or group attempting to improve life in their community by advocating for changes they want to see directly to those in power. So yes, this is the heart of what we do. This is the heart of Earth Force, is really environmental citizenship, environmental civic engagement, right? And so there are three components that research has shown us, three experiences young people need. The first experience is that they need to ask for change. So hopefully you heard this throughout the process, something repeated again and again. But young people need the opportunity to ask for change from somebody in power. So if they have strategies, whatever the strategies are that are addressing the issues that they chose, we want to ensure that those strategies have at least a component of asking for change. So for example, if they are wanting to put a garden in the schoolyard, they can ask for change by asking for policies to change at the school to allow gardens. They could present their ideas to a principal or school board or even a district. So we want them to share what they've learned and ask for something to change. So that's a key part. Another really key part of getting those civic experiences that young people need in order to really flex and build those civic muscles is they need to care about the issue, right? It seems obvious, but we want young people to decide on those issues as much as possible. Now, we totally understand that there is often that scope or boundary that we talked about earlier. You might have standards you need to meet, or there might be a topic like flooding, for example, that you're focusing on. That's fine. Letting young people decide within that on the issues that are most interesting to them is the really important piece. We also want young people to discuss and debate the issues that they care about. This really shows that they understand the issues and offers them the opportunity to share their ideas and the newfound knowledge that they have gained with peers and with the stakeholders. All right, so we've explored the 6-step process, super quick overview. Now it's important to think about how we can begin to integrate these things into our learning and teaching right away. So working through the Earth Force process doesn't have to take 6 months, 6 weeks even. You could start practicing the process just by exploring issues in your classroom on which students could take action. We've seen some great examples of this before. Perhaps it's starting to offer additional opportunities to work in partnership with young people. So maybe help having your students help doing some planning or some key decision making. Or maybe it's stepping back and let students take over some of the tasks that require them to reach out to adults and stakeholders in their community. That's another great way to just begin those some of those key pieces of the Earth Force process. And as this is an overview of the process, let us zoom out and just thinking about the big picture here. So what we're talking about is a process that works, is all about educating with young people instead of to young people. It's often messy, but it's really all about the process of learning and the skills that we and students develop along the way. Okay, so are you ready to learn a little bit more and dig into Earth Force a little more deeply? If so, you can head over to our website. Pretty simple, earthforce.org. From there, you can also get to our earthforceresources.org website, where you can find lesson plans and a whole bunch of other goodies. From there, you can also sign up from our newsletter. So visit our website. Well, that's all for now. Just a taste of Earth Force and what we do. I hope you'll join us in our mission to cultivate young people who are advocating for change around the environmental issues in their community that are important to them. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.